Thank you for. Oh yeah, I forgot to record. Thank you. One little thing. So.
Oh yeah, that's
for the people online, thank you for coming today, and for the people here in the Valley, thank you for coming and support us. So I see a lot of new faces and a lot of common faces. So my name is Marco Palacios. I'm one of the members of Pacific Hackers. And if you don't know about us, we do this every month. We've been doing this for 5 years. And our goal is to basically get everybody into cybersecurity. So we do a lot of hands-on presentations. We do competitions like capture the flag, CTFs, and stuff like that. And we, like I said, we do this every month. We did it in different places, and we end up here. So if you don't know anything about Maker Nexus, so Maker Nexus, gave us the space to basically host this. Prior to this, or in fact, prior to the pandemic, we used to do it at the Martin Luther King Library in downtown San Jose. That was also a big space, but pandemic hit. We have to do it, remote. And now they open and let us in, and we're very thankful for them. So I always like to talk about what they do. So it's a kind of like a maker space slash hacker space, because if you pay a fee, you come and basically use everything that they do here. 3D printing, electronics. So if you're into badge life, you can come and do your own electronics or badges and stuff like that. So, and if you don't know how to do it, they also offer classes that you can do, for that. So, many people don't know, but we also have, let me move this here. So we became a nonprofit organization as well. So, and we just add the association to Pacific Hackers. So obviously here, everything's free. We're not gonna charge you. But for Pacific Hackers Association as a nonprofit, we're actually taking it to the next level, and we're helping people, and we're focused on veterans and underrepresented communities to get into cybersecurity. We know that the system is broken. The HR system is broken. They don't really know what they want when they're hiring people, and the schools are, they don't really know what to teach. So by people coming or becoming a member of Pacific Hackers Association, we're gonna, if you're basically from, don't know anything about security, want to get into security, we're gonna put you in the right path to get to the next level and eventually get a job. So far, we have placed people at NASA here at Ames, Amazon, other 3-letter agencies, and a local, another consulting company doing penetration testing. So, we have, we're in the process of fixing this. We have a donation page that obviously, and I'm sorry, I thought I was showing this here. Fortunately not, sorry. Maybe the people online looking at it, you guys are not here, but I'm more than happy to present it to you guys. Basically, we have a donation page where people can donate if you like, but also there's other ways you can help us, get to where we want. And it's by obviously inviting people, telling them about us, telling them that there's a group here in the Valley that are really, willing to help. And also, or maybe your employer is hiring, tell them, hey, you're looking for a security person, go through them. They will find you the right person, the person that you really need, not what HR is gonna pick for you or the recruiters and stuff like that. So there's many ways. There's a lot of things that can do. By the way, can you guys see it on the screen?
Yeah, we'll see it.
Okay. For some reason, I'm running difficulties here today because I'm by myself. So, sorry for the people here. The website is pacifichackers.org. The meetup, as you probably found it, was meetup.com/Pacific Hackers. And again, thank you again for coming. And today we have technically 2 presentations. The first one is going to be through Phil. Phil was going to be here. He couldn't make it. So he's going to do it online. And the next one, if time permits, because I know we have there's an event going on also outside. if time permits, I'm gonna just do a quick demo on a FortiGate, which as probably a lot of you know, I work for Fortinet. We do security products. One of them is a firewall with the capabilities of wireless. So I'm gonna show that today. I have not plugged it in or anything like that. So you're probably gonna see the whole setup from, you know, plugging it in to like connecting it to everything. So I hope you enjoy it. And with that, I'm gonna let Phil introduce himself, share the screen. Let me do some magic here and go ahead, Phil, see if you can share.
All right, thanks, Marco. First thing I want to say is firewalls are good, right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Get two.
Oh yeah, yeah, I don't know.
Right. I'm coming in on a second PC, which is my Kali Linux.
Okay, right on.
Can you let him in, please? It's saying let me see. Has got to give permission.
Oh, here it is. It just comes back to this one. Give me a second. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
And do you need a co-host on that one as well?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Now, on my main one, I'm getting host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, really interesting. Okay. Okay, can you try it again?
Yep.
All right. Okay.
I'm actually using my second sign-in as a monitor so I can see where I'm presenting. So I'm seeing the screen. So I think everybody's good now.
Yeah, we're seeing the presentation right now.
Perfect, perfect. All right, let's get on with this then.
Okay.
All right. So good afternoon, everybody. We're going to talk about Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi security. I am going to talk about a lot of primitives, and I'm assuming that there may be some people who are new at this, so I will go off on a tangent talking about certificates and symmetric and asymmetric encryption. If you know more about it, if you know all about it, you can take an extra coffee break. So I'm going to keep this from the basics. And don't worry, we will get into the weeds very, very quickly. So this is me. It's on the video. If you want to know more, watch the video again. I work for a company called NC Expert. We do a lot of Cisco training, wireless training, cybersecurity training. Here's my contact information. You are more than welcome to reach out to me. And of course, the company I work for would love you all to call up and buy some cybersecurity or wireless training. You can do that as well. Hint, hint. Got to do this. What I'm going to show you today are real things you can do to your next door neighbor's Wi-Fi. Please don't do that. If you do, it's your responsibility. Me, company I work for, the guys and gals of Pacific Hackers are not responsible if a black van appears outside your door because you thought it might be fun to attack the naval base near you or something. So this is real stuff we're going to talk about today. So again, be careful what you do, okay? So I want to talk about basic security concepts. As I said, if you're an experienced tech user, you can go have an extra coffee break for 10 minutes, but I want to talk about these things because we're going to refer to them in the rest of the presentation. Then we're going to talk about Wi-Fi security, and everybody knows Wi-Fi security, right? I set Wi-Fi at Gamgam's house over the weekend. It took me 20 minutes. So real Wi-Fi security is a little bit more complex than just setting a box up at Gamgam's house. Then we'll talk about what's wrong with Wi-Fi. Then we'll say, you know, surely it's not that easy to break. Spoiler alert, it is. Is there hope? We'll talk about some top tips for Wi-Fi defense in the home. Probably a bit late now. Maybe we should have done this 2 years ago because a lot of us have worked from home for the longest time. And there are loads of stories out there where nasty people have tried to break in to corporate networks. They got a FortiGate, they got a Cisco firewall, whatever. And no, you're not coming in. So they then follow an executive home and break into their Wi-Fi at home because their password's like Cisco 123 or something, right? Once they break into the wireless network, they have full access to your network. And now the beauty of Wi-Fi hacking is you can do it from half a mile away. Okay, I don't need to be inside your building being caught by the security systems. I can do it from the grocery store parking lot across the road. Okay, I will do a demo of attacks and some defenses. I will open up to Q&A, and again, time allowing, we may finish a little early, we may finish a bit longer. I try not to go over 2 hours, and perhaps you guys can help me and remind me on that. I do like this, I do enjoy this, so I can get carried away, as you may know if you've met me or seen me before. So let's start off with basic security concepts, right? Starting off at Security 101, okay? Apparently the first person in security was Julius Caesar. He wrote on a piece of wood, a rod of unknown size, information, coiled up some cloth, wrote on it, converted it into the underwear of a Roman soldier, and got them to wear the underwear. When you're in the Roman army and the general says, wear this, go there, you don't argue. And the paperwork that was in the pouch was completely false information. I believe, I've heard stories that Julius Caesar was the first person that used a cipher method to encrypt data. So we need to talk about the CIA, not that one. That one, confidentiality, integrity, and availability are the security pillars. Today, there are 2 more we have to take aware of. That's authenticity and non-repudiation. There are 2 types of encryption that we have today: symmetric and asymmetric. Put simply, symmetric uses the same key. The problem is getting the key to the other party. Asymmetric is you create a key pair and you keep one private and you make one public. You can, whatever you encrypt with one key, you can only decrypt with the other. Whatever you encrypt with the other key, you can only encrypt with the one you have. So you keep one private, make one public. Asymmetric key encryption, keys are approximately 10 times larger and also take 10 times the CPU power. We also have hashing, which is a form of security. It does not involve encrypting the data, but it involves taking a mathematical calculation through an algorithm to get a hash value of a fixed size, irrelevant of the size of the data, and you can encrypt the hash value. If you encrypt the symmetric, let me do that again. If you encrypt the hash key with a symmetric key, that is known as a hash key or a symmetric hashing. If you encrypt the hash value with an asymmetric key, that is a special name called a digital signature or digitally signed. Now, symmetric encryption give you the 5 pillars: confidentiality, integrity, availability, authentication, and non-repudiation. Yay. The problem we have, though, is getting the symmetric key over to the other party. If you do asymmetric encryption, remember you have one private key and one public key. The public key is freely available and known to everybody, you don't care. The private key is kept very, very secret. If you encrypt with the private key, it can only be decrypted with the public key. Because everybody knows the public key, everybody can decrypt what you've encrypted. So you have integrity, you have availability, you have authentication, and you have non-repudiation. What don't you have is confidentiality. If you encrypt with your, let me do it again. If you encrypt with the other side's public key that they've made available, only they can decrypt it. So now you have confidentiality and availability. So it's not easy using asymmetric encryption to have all 5. What you have to do is you have to, first of all, encrypt with your private key, then do a second encryption with their public key. And you have to assume that the other party has your public key. Okay, then this double encryption gives you all 5 of the CIA pillars. As you mentioned, if you do symmetric hashing, just understand straight away that there's no confidentiality because you're only encrypting the hash value. But you do get the other 4, right? Integrity, availability, authentication, and non-repudiation. Same with asymmetric key hashing or digital signatures. You don't get confidentiality, but you do get the other 4. So hashing per se doesn't give you confidentiality, but it does give you non-repudiation. You can't deny sending it. Authentication, it was you, and you can prove it was you that sent it. Availability, it keeps the system and the data available. Integrity, you know the data hasn't changed. So all that Bob and Alice need to do, it's always Bob and Alice, remember? All that Bob and Alice need to do is give each other their public keys. And then they have this perfect form of communication where they can get all 5 of the pillars of the CIA triad. That's wrong, isn't it? All 5 of the CIA triad, but you know what I mean. Okay, all 3 of the CIA triad and the extra 2 we have today. They can now communicate perfectly, but there's a flaw, right? What if they want to communicate, but nasty hacker jumps in the middle? Nasty hacker intercepts the information and sends his public key down to Alice. So now we have a problem where how do we make sure the key that we are using really is the key that we want? And that's where certificate authorities come in. We pay a fee, we send off our public key to a certificate authority. They digitally sign our key, that they are private key. Okay, and that creates what we call a certificate. Why am I telling you all this? Because we use certificates in Wales. That's only why. If you know this, if you all got your hands up, Phil, it's way more complex than that. You're wrong. Absolutely. This is meant to be a very simple overview. Okay. It's a lot more complex than this, but I believe this is the basics. So knowing this, you can understand what comes next. So what happens is the certificate authority, because usually you pay them, they send back the certificate, and you don't send your public key out, you send it out in the form of a certificate. So when you send your certificate down to Alice, Alice authenticates your certificate using the public key that she's gotten from the certificate authority. And she's either installed this beforehand or it's pre-built into the operating system or the web browser. So certificates are used as an option in Wi-Fi networks. Okay, that brings us on to now the theory of Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi security. So you need to be aware of the following people in Wi-Fi. They are very important. The FCC is the regulatory authority that controls power limits, frequencies, and channels. The IEEE create the standard and amendments to the standard, often called standards and protocols, but there really only is one standard. And the current standard is the 2020 version of the IEEE 802.11 standard. Everything else, AX, for example, is an amendment. It will be absorbed in about 4 years or so when the next update happens. Then you've got the Wi-Fi Alliance. Now, the Wi-Fi Alliance are really good people. They are vendor-based, but they're a good bunch of people. And what they do is they convert the IEEE rules into workable, real rules. And the Wi-Fi Alliance have more power than the IEEE. Everybody thinks everybody does what the IEEE says. They don't. Everybody does what the Wi-Fi Alliance says. Prime example, have you ever heard of 802.11i? No, never heard of it, Phil. That is the IEEE security amendment that was renamed as WPA and WPA2. Oh yeah, why didn't you say so? Because one's an IEEE amendment, one's a Wi-Fi Alliance certification. How about 802.11e? Hardly any people have heard of that. That's quality of service. You use a variant of it day to day, but you use the Wi-Fi Alliance rework of it called WMM. Okay, so the IEEE do a lot of good work, take a long time to do it, but it's got to be done properly. The Wi-Fi Alliance convert the output of the IEEE into more usable functionality. So just running off the top of my head, if you want to use networking today, 2022, and you want to be secure and you want to be protected, you've got to use 802.11a, b, d, e, g, I, h, w, or you sign up and you buy equipment that is Wi-Fi Alliance, voice personal, or voice enterprise compatible. And you haven't got to worry about all the letters. You know that when you go to market and you buy a client that's voice enterprise capable, you know it will work with Cisco, Aruba, Mist, Ruckus, Meraki, Extreme, all of them. So the Wi-Fi Alliance are the real power base, and you see their certifications quite often printed on the box of the USB Wi-Fi adapter that you buy. Now, we don't believe in reinventing the wheel, so quite often we in the wireless community and the Wi-Fi Alliance will reuse current protocols like CAPWAP, Radius, EAP. They are IETF protocols, and we will reuse them within our certification of the Wi-Fi Alliance. And the one thing to be aware of, very important, is not the Ethernet form of broadcast, but wireless is a broadcast medium. That means you are transmitting your signal out into the air. Now that means just like broadcast radio, just like broadcast television. That means anybody can pick it up, right? That means anybody can hear it and interpret it. Now, one very little known fact about Wi-Fi is that if I add antenna gain, if I upgrade my antenna to a bigger, better, more powerful antenna on my client, that means I can hear your access point louder. So an antenna not only broadcasts louder, it allows you to hear louder. So distance away should never be a security mechanism with Wi-Fi. I've walked around the perimeter. We can't see the SSID being advertised outside of that little room in the middle where I've got the open network that I onboard my phones. And okay, then I do a proof of concept to show them that if I increase the antenna on my client, I can hear that SSID just fine. Thank you. Write that down, underline it. Distance should never be a security mechanism, especially in Wi-Fi. Let me say that again. If I increase the gain of my antenna, I can hear your Wi-Fi network from across the supermarket, across the road, which is typically outside your boundary security. You try and keep everything inside the fence secure. The grocery store across the road is where I'm sat. Outside your boundary, I can still break into your network. Okay, that's very important to understand with Wi-Fi. So the boogeyman is out there. There are monsters in the world we need to be protected from. They will come at us by attacking our Wi-Fi. Okay, the easiest thing they can attack, they will attack. And Wi-Fi is very easy to attack. Surely not, Phil. We'll see. Werner Vogels once said, dance like nobody's watching, encrypt like everyone is. One of my favorite quotes. Okay, be paranoid. If you turn to me and say, Phil, you're a little bit paranoid, my response is going to be, thank you. Yes, I know. Spend some time talking to Rod and Marco. Should you be paranoid? Yes, you should. So what are the foundations of the operation of WPA and WPA2 that we use most frequently and most commonly today? First, connection to the network, pre-shared key, 802.1x, EAP or Radius, usually just called .1x. And of course, the four-way handshake are the most important primitives we have to understand the building blocks of Wi-Fi. Okay, so Wi-Fi operates as a state machine. Okay, you start off in state number one, you are unauthenticated and you are unassociated. Now we have to stop. Authentication here has got nothing to do with security. Put that out of your mind. Authentication used to be done with WEP, with a four-way exchange, which was very insecure. Okay, you never ever send plain text and encrypted text over the same medium. If your response is why, go and watch the movie The Imitation Game, to how the Allies broke the Nazi Enigma machine, quite possibly one of the best encryption mechanisms ever created, but they didn't do it properly, and they sent the same words every day at the same time. Every morning they sent a weather report out. Okay, and that allowed the Allies to break the Enigma code because they were working from an unencrypted set and an encrypted set. So WEP had this inherent problem. So we turn off this functionality, and very, very simply, the first thing we do is we authenticate. Okay, we turn off shared authentication. Knock, 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 can I come in? That's all this is. It's an authentication request followed by an authentication response that usually always yes. So there's no security at the authentication phase. You are now in state authenticated, but you are unassociated, or your client, I should say. Your client will now associate, okay? All before this, either by looking at beacons or listening to or sending out probe requests, you've chosen an access point. You authenticate to the access point, knock, 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 can I come in? You associate to the access point. Association is a big deal. You get a number called your association ID. That means you belong to that access point. You can only be associated to one IP at a time. So here we've got AID number 7. You are now connected to Wi-Fi. Excuse me. You are now connected to Wi-Fi, and you can now communicate and send data. Typically now we have what I call security authentication. Sometimes I call this second authentications as a tribute to Hobbits, who everybody know has second breakfasts, okay? Second authentications is, okay? And this is where real security takes place. You can turn it off and have no security. Well, if that's the case, you should really have a hotspot or a captive portal or some other forms of protection. And this is usually what you do at a guest network at a coffee shop, guest network at a stadium, okay? Usually you make the users do an acceptable use policy, enter their email, sign in with the username and password, or pay money to buy some tokens or something, but some kind of hotspot or captive portal, or if nothing else, it's a completely open network, but a firewall is put on to restrict what is and what isn't allowed to go through that network. So it's very restricted. Don't leave an open network completely open with no security on it, because you'll have the FBI knocking on your door. If you're lucky, you'll have an email from your internet service provider asking, why were you downloading illegal copies of Spider-Man 3? Okay, please stop doing it. If you're very unlucky, you'll have anti-terrorist squads or illegal activity squads knocking on your doors because the bad people connected to your network, when they bought the insert problematic thing here, drugs, bombs, whatever, when they bought them, they used your email, sorry, apologies, they used your web. I'm off on a tangent, let me start it again. They're using your Wi-Fi to get the information, okay? Sorry, I was thinking ahead of my next thing, run away with myself. So the best thing you can do, of course, is to put some security on, put security on, okay? And there are really 2 types of security that you can use today. There's personal, where you have a pre-shared key, and enterprise, where you have a full-on radius server and you use EAP.1x type security to connect to the Wi-Fi network. Now, look, let's be honest. I'm not going to say never. It's very unlikely that you're going to have enterprise radius servers at home. Grandma isn't, right? So pre-shared key is a very popular alternative today. Now, you may say, what about WPA or WPA2? When 802.11i came out, okay, before that, all we had was WEP. And the Wi-Fi Alliance had noted that WEP was becoming weaker. So the Wi-Fi Alliance created WPA with the TKIP protocol running on the RC4 algorithm to protect and make WEP better. It's basically WEP version 2. No one ever called it that, but it's based on WEP. Then 802.11i came out about a year or so later, and the Wi-Fi Alliance immediately transferred the functionality and technology from 802.11i and came up with WPA2. So WPA2 could also do backwards compatible and could use TKIP and RC4, and then transition to CCMP and AES. Well, as of 2014, the Wi-Fi Alliance came out and said, if you want to use TKIP, you've got to use WPA. If you want to use WPA2, it's only allowed to use CCMP and AES. Now, vendors, of course, bend the rules here, and you may think, well, my vendor allows me. Sure, your vendor is breaking the 2014. That's like 8 years ago, gang, right? They break in the 2014 ruling, so they are not Wi-Fi Alliance compatible, right? Just be aware. So when you do personal, pre-shared key, or enterprise .1x radius, it's followed by the four-way handshake. Four-way handshake is what gives you your usable keys on the network. Only if you run the four-way handshake are you secure. Okay. So pre-shared key, you have a symmetric key that is put in the form of a passphrase on the client and what I call the wireless infrastructure. If you have a Comcast or an AT&T wireless router at home, you have a standalone AP. If you use Meraki Mist in the office, you have a cloud-based wireless LAN control entity. If you have Cisco or Aruba, you may have a wireless LAN controller in your office. So I'm bundling all of these together, all forms of standalone IP, cloud controller, and local controllers. I'm bundling together into the name called the wireless infrastructure. So the wireless infrastructure, if that's too complex or too much to think about, just think the AP, because the wireless LAN controller sends the information down to the AP because the AP is under the control of the controller or the cloud, right? So just think AP if you have to. The wireless infrastructure and the client are told what the passphrase is. Now, the passphrase, may the force be with you, let me in. That's not the pre-shared key. The passphrase is mixed 4,096 times with the SSID to create what is called the pre-shared key, which is 64 bytes long, 512 bits. Okay, so that's good because that means if I use let me in and you use let me in on a different SSID, we have a different pre-shared key. Well, that's good, but that's about as far as good as it gets. The one thing you need to understand is everybody that's using the same passphrase with the same SSID, so everybody on your network ends up with the same pre-shared key. It's very important to understand that. That is not good. Well, I try and keep a straight face while I say this. It's fine as long as you change the passphrase every 30 days and you change the passphrase when somebody leaves your network. No, you don't. No one does. I don't. No one does. That's the problem with pre-shared key, right? Everybody who's ever connected to your network with the same passphrase knows your pre-shared key. So a bit of theory, again, rewatch the video if you want to read more about it. I'm not going to go on about this, but the password-based key derivation function has been used a lot throughout the industry. Basically what happens, it's a pseudo-random function of two parameters with output length, H length, okay? So password is the master password, the pre-shared key. Salt is a sequence of bits known as cryptographic salt. If you haven't guessed it already, the SSID is used as a salt. Oh, okay. C is the number of iterations, 4,096. DK length, the desired bit length derived key. And then DK is the generated derived key. Now, I did get this from Wikipedia, maybe a bit complex. One thing you may find an argument with me with is the size of the key. Okay, the pairwise master key is 256 bits. The pre-shared key is 512 bits. So sometimes you see 256 written here. That's not the PBKDF2 output. That is the key that we use in wireless, which you'll learn about in a little while. Now it is run 4,096 times. Remember this, if I'm trying to guess your pre-shared key, I have to do a calculation 4,096 times for every key I guess. That slows down calculations. If you are using WPA2 Enterprise, you have software on the client called the supplicant. It communicates with the wireless LAN infrastructure, which is called the authenticator. It communicates with a radius server. And the radius server is what does the authentication. Okay. Now, this little extra note here is only here because typically today, people either use a Microsoft radius server or they have their radius server like Cisco ICE integrated with a Microsoft AD or some other kind of LDAP. So users and passwords are no longer stored on the radius server. They may use an LDAP function to go look them up on an LDAP server. But typically what we care about is the supplicant, the authenticator, and the authentication server, also known as the radius server. And by the way, the authenticator is a pass-through. It is the supplicant and the authentication server that do the Wi-Fi magic. But this again tends to be an enterprise level functionality. You probably won't see this on your home wireless router. That leads us on to the four-way handshake. Whether you've used Personal to create a pre-shared key, or you've used the .1x EAP radius method to create the output of which creates a master session key. Both of these, if they are larger, are shrunk down into a 256-bit pairwise master key. Now, this is the daddy or the granddaddy of all your keys. Kind of everybody using the same key all the time. So when you use a connection, please understand the output of the four-way handshake, which we'll go through in a minute, is a pairwise transient key. The pairwise transient key is the same whether you're using a passphrase or Personal or enterprise. Now, please understand, this is Personal, this is enterprise. Now we talk about the supplicant client talking to the authenticator access point. So from this point on, we're not differentiating between Personal and enterprise. Both of them result in a pairwise master key. Please understand the pairwise master key may have to be downloaded to the access point as a function of the successful finish of an enterprise authentication. Okay. The pairwise transient key guarantees that every client, every time they connect, will have a unique set of keys. Yes, they will all have the same pre-shared key if they are using Personal. Yes, they will always get a unique MSK every time the same client. If the same client connects, disconnects, connects, disconnects, connects, disconnects, connects, disconnects. On that fourth connect, it disconnects. You then connect a fifth time. On that fifth reconnection, you will have a unique master session. That's why enterprise is so much stronger than Personal. Everybody has the same pre-shared key. If they belong to the same SSID and they've used the same passphrase, that means everybody has the same PMK on that network. Okay. So what happens with the four-way handshake is the access point sends down a random number. The client then sends up a random number. The access point then goes to step number 3. And the client then sends step number 4. Okay. So at the end of step number 2, the client and the AP have got all the information they need to create the pairwise transient key. They have the PMK, and they have the supplicant, the client's random number, the authenticator, the AP's random number, the supplicant's MAC address, the authenticator's MAC address. So these 5 things are mixed together to create the pairwise transient key. The pairwise transient key is actually split up into 4 parts. One of them is the KEK key, one is the KCK key, one is the temporal key. Sometimes you'll see it in documentation as the temporal encryption key, the TEK. And the 4th one is kind of unused. I'll say it's unused. For those of you who know better, it is actually used to create EDIT2.LMW PMF keys to protect against the authentication attacks if you're using that. But outside of EDIT2.LMW, these keys are unused, or these values are unused. So the AP sends out its random number, the client sends up its random number. Now everybody knows everything they need to know. Notice the client, when it sends up exchange number 2, it has a MIC value. A MIC value is a fancy frame check sequence. Think of it as a fancy frame check sequence. But it's encrypted with the key check key, KCK. Don't get hung up on the order I put these in. This is for information. The order may change. It's just for information. So this key, the KCK key, is used to encrypt the MIC value in exchange 2, 3, and 4. If any form of man-in-the-middle attack goes on, the MIC value will change. As a result, we know if someone is messing with us. So key exchange 2, 3, and 4 is protected from man-in-the-middle attacks by the KCK key. The whole purpose, remember I told you, was to get a unique pairwise transient key, which is a unique temporal key. Well, if everybody's got a unique temporal key, How do we send a broadcast packet? Oh, so there needs to be a broadcast key. So the broadcast key is generated by the access point, usually the first time the first client connects, and is sent encrypted by the key encryption key in exchange number 3. Also protected by a MIC value. So here's my MAC address, here's my MAC address, it's protected. Here's the broadcast key, it's protected. Yep, we're good, it's protected. Key exchange number 4 is Roger Dodger, we are good, let's do it. Now, if ever you find a situation where the 4-way handshake fails after exchange number 2, that is where the access point on receiving the frame calculates the MIC of the frame using its KCK. If it's not the same, either the data has been changed or you're using a different passphrase. So the 4-way handshake will drop at handshake number 2. So if you see the 4-way handshake constantly dropping at exchange number 2, you probably put in the wrong passphrase. And Wi-Fi keys need to be a minimum of 8. So double check uppercase, lowercase, blah, blah, blah. Okay. As mentioned, if you use 802.1x EAP radius, during the connection phase, the radius server will download its certificate to you, the client. You must have validate certificate turned on, and you must have a key present, or you must have a certificate present containing a key, a public key, that will be used to validate the certificate that was just sent down to you by the radius server. 802.1x EAP radius is only secure. It is way more secure than pre-shed key. It is only secure if you have valid certificate checked and you've installed the certificate. Oh, I think maybe I'll unselect this, Phil, because I got a problem. That would be a very, very foolish thing to do. You never, ever uncheck that box. And you tell all your users, if ever the client gets a message saying, hey, this server certificate seems invalid. Do you want to continue? The response is no. As in, Luke, I am your father. No, really, really no. Okay. You can't break 802.1x EAP radius, but you can break it with a stupid user. Okay. There's an old hack I used to show in my classes where I used to use an old Android phone, and I do the hack on my new Android phone, on my iPhone, and up would come a big red alarm going, alarm, alarm, the certificate is invalid, alarm, do you want to continue? And of course you say no. But on the old Android, you'd connect, and a little in the corner of the page, right in the corner of the page down here, was a little message saying in parentheses, RV readable, certificate's invalid, do you want to continue? And of course, a user goes, sure. And now you've allowed nasty hacker into the exchange. Okay. So as long as you validate certificate, and you can set a group policy now, I believe, on Microsoft and other policies on Androids and iPhones and tablets and things today, where if the certificate is ever invalid, it stops and does not let a stupid user say continue. And again, I'm saying stupid user because that is a very bad thing to do. Okay. Do not allow your users to say, yeah, I know the certificate's valid, but we'll continue anyway. So as long as you stay within the constraints of this, when the radius server downloads its certificate, just like standard SSL and TLS, the client uses that certificate to exchange data via an asymmetric key tunnel to create symmetric keys that will be used in the continuation of the authentication to the radius server and the other bits that go on up until you get the yes, you are authenticated, and then you do the standard 4-way handshake. Really, today you've got to be using Kali Linux. Kali Linux is a pen tester's best friend, a hacker's best friend, whatever. Wi-Fi operation is very easy to do on 2.4 gigahertz, more difficult to do on 5 gigahertz, especially AC. Phil, what about AX? I haven't heard of any yet. What about 6 stop? What about 6 gigahertz? Stop. No, not gonna happen for a long time. Okay. The problem is we got to get the silicon that does it. Then we got to get the drivers written for Kali Linux. So chipsets, Ralink, Realtek, Atheros, and Intel. I like to use Ralink personally, and I can show you the devices I'm using if you're interested. Most of my demos will be done on 2.4, but I do have a 5 gigahertz one, which are going to sell out very quickly on eBay once I announce what they are. And they are just beautiful little devices that will do 5 gigahertz. Yeah, Craig, show us the devices. So my first one is a little Panda wireless. The second one is this little guy. I don't know if you can see it. Now, it's not the guy with the big antennas on. I haven't got him working yet. I got an announcement from Hack5 that this USB will work with the Pineapple version 7, which I'm assuming there's got to be Linux drivers for. So I bought one. I also bought the Pineapple 7 adapter as well. I bought this. I've tried to get it working. I've not succeeded yet. But this is the guy. I don't know if you can see it. The Linksys. It's a Linksys dual band Linksys. I'm not going to unplug it. I'll tell you later. I think it's the 600N or something. I'll get the exact part name later. It's exactly the same driver as the 2.4 gigahertz one I use. So it's swap compatible between the USB 2.4 Panda wireless, $10 or something on Amazon. It's the same one that if you go to Hack5 website and you buy the Hack5 adapter, it's the same one that they have. I'll unplug it. I'll have a break in a minute for Q&A, and I'll unplug it and give you the exact part number. You can't buy them anymore, but they every now and again somebody puts them on eBay for somewhere between 20 and 50 bucks. I usually grab them very quickly because they're a great Wi-Fi adapter to use the Kali Linux that supports 5 gigahertz. It's N only, right? You're not going to get AC, but you can do 5 gigahertz captures. One thing you have to understand with Wi-Fi is if you've ever used Wireshark with Ethernet, you know all about promiscuous mode, okay? Promiscuous mode is not good enough in Wi-Fi. You have to have monitor mode. It's another level. Sorry, Microsoft people, Microsoft does not let you put their drivers in monitor mode, period. Now, before all you Apple people get too smug, Apple do not let you put the iPhone and the iPad drivers in monitor mode either. So me as a, let's say a Wi-Fi hacker, a Wi-Fi pen tester, has an Apple MacBook Pro and an Android Samsung S21. They are the tools that I carry with me when I do Wi-Fi work, looking at signal strength, because the Android phone has great utilities and the MacBook Pro has the ability to capture traffic. Now, there is a problem with the new MacBook M1s where there is a corruption somewhere in the Apple stack. It works fine for wireless traffic. When you capture traffic on the Apple stack, there can be a corruption that takes place, and the your Wireshark tells you it's a beacon frame when it's a probe frame. That appears to be fixed in the new M1 MacBook. What is the M1 Max Pros and things? The new M1 processors don't seem to have that problem. If you've got an Intel MacBook, you don't have that problem anyway. But it's a problem where, well, all the capture utilities I use, they all have the same problem where on the original M1 MacBook Pro and the MacBook Mini, the Mac Mini, there was a corruption that happened in the stack somewhere. But if you've got a newer MacBook Pro or a Mac Mini or whatever, then that, what I've heard at the moment is that is no longer a problem. There's about 1,000 people I know in the Wi-Fi community that are a tight-knit group, and we kept saying, hey, Apple, it doesn't work. And Apple never responded with like, oh, we'll fix that now because there's like 1,000 people that care about it, right? I'm not being mean to Apple. I love Apple, don't get me wrong. But we told Apple about it, and it's fixed in the new model, so maybe they did take notice. Problem solved. So again, capture with Microsoft is very difficult. That's why we use Kali Linux. So you can capture with Kali Linux, then view it in Microsoft Wireshark or Apple Wireshark. You've got to get used to these guys. These guys are the go-to wireless utilities in Kali Linux for working with Wi-Fi. The aircrack-ng suite. You need to know what chipset is being used. You can use Linux utilities. M1ng is the easiest tool to use to see what chipsets and drivers are being used. Here's a command you can type in. You've got to make sure you not connected to Wi-Fi. Okay. Load up your Kali Linux, plug in your USB, type in air replay ng tap test wireless LAN 0. If you get a message back that says injection is working, you know that that card will work with Kali Linux. Now, just because a card works with Kali Linux for connecting to Wi-Fi doesn't mean it will work with Kali Linux and will work with aircrack-ng. So test it, make sure that aircrack-ng tools will work on it by getting packet injection working. So this is a test to prove that packet injection is working. If you don't get this message, your wireless adapter is probably not compatible with a lot of the Wi-Fi hacking tools. All right. Did you want to stop the recording there, Marco, please? Marco, you there? Don't think.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Give me a second. I'm trying to stop the recording. Give me a second.
No worries. Sorry. Bit of short notice, Marco. Apologies.
Should be good to go. I stopped the recording.
Excellent. So do you see any questions?
Yeah, give me a second. Do you guys have any questions for him before we continue, like the people in the room?
I actually do.
Sure. We have a question, so.
I suppose I should stay closer considering what happened when you tried to talk to him.
Yeah.
So I've been having weird computer activity. I'm not asking you to deal with that. That'd be silly. I've tried looking through Wireshark. It's a Microsoft, and when I noticed that I couldn't even see my own web searches. So you said that monitor mode was needed for it and not promiscuous. Is that something that can cause that?
That's just for Wi-Fi. So promiscuous mode works fine on Microsoft for Ethernet captures, but for Wi-Fi captures, if you're using Wi-Fi, you need monitor mode. So if you're doing something on Microsoft with Wi-Fi, and you're like, I'm going to capture my traffic and see what happens, you're not going to. Well, you should capture your own traffic, but it won't. But when we want to troubleshoot or hack Wi-Fi, we need to see all Wi-Fi traffic going by us, not just the communication between our device and the AP. So you should see your own traffic.
So that's a different problem, but I'll run into that problem later when I'm doing something important.
Sure.
All right, I'm done.
Anyone else has another question?
Will slides be available?
Yes.
Slides?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the slides will not be available, sorry. The video will be available, but not the slides. Slides are copyright NC expert.
Okay. There you go.
I have a question. Can do I need to be?
No, I think
Okay. Well, okay. This kind of a side question. I was wondering for home use. Assume all factors are equal in terms of encryption and protocol. isn't it, why would it be better if you have stronger Wi-Fi? You know, now they sound really expensive. You know, Wi-Fi routers. And so I was thinking, if you have one that is sufficient, is good enough. You don't need to have it that long of a distance because it just allowed hackers to access to you, right?
So-
Remember you said that if the hackers can increase the gain, they can hack you as far as half a mile. So if your signal is only good enough, like within your fence, and not like the more expensive Wi-Fi router that you buy, it amplifies the signal, right? So that you get more. But if it's sufficient enough for your distance, you don't need longer than your yard.
Yeah, yes, but
Is
so
that
I can hack you from further away because I've got a better antenna. So the reason you want to buy a new access point or a Wi-Fi router, the reason you want to buy it is because of what it does security-wise, not because it covers better. A lot of people focus on, you're absolutely right, a lot of people focus on coverage of the Wi-Fi when they should focus on the security of the Wi-Fi. That's why you should upgrade. So if you have an AP or a Wi-Fi router that meets your coverage requirements, you need to upgrade it because it does not meet your security requirements. And if it does meet your security requirements, by the end of this talk, you may want to revise them.
okay?
Yeah, and also again, it's not on the schedule, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you with a high-end product, security product, how you can defend from this attack, right? Because on his next slide, I'm pretty sure he's gonna talk about it, but why Wi-Fi is hackable with the pre-shared cases, because again, you use those tools that he's gonna show you to hack it, and it's very easy. You can create an antenna with cans from from like the fruit cans, like the food cans. You can create an antenna with some stuff like that. And like he was saying, I can be here and your Wi-Fi is over there. I can create something that literally, as long as I point it to the right direction, I'll be able to get your signal. Okay, but that doesn't mean, depending on what you have, what type of infrastructure you have, I might be able to hack it or not. That's the difference. So,
Right. But let's say there are two people over there. One has a stronger Wi-Fi router than the other.
doesn't matter.
Then it's easier for you to access the one with the stronger
At
signal.
that point, it doesn't matter because I can. I've seen projects where they do like 2 miles. Yeah, so it's possible.
Oh yeah, for military purpose.
Well, and they go farther too. So I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
young homebrew.
But I'm saying at home. Okay, so what I got from Phil was that it's better to work on the protocol.
Yes.
Than the signal strength. If it's sufficient for you,
Right.
you don't
Right.
need to go 5 houses away.
Right.
You just need
Yeah,
to.
and we'll discuss that later because
Okay.
I think you're gonna see it. How you can protect yourself. So
Yeah.
So go ahead, continue, Phil.
Okay. Thank you.
Here you go. Here it is.
So I just checked with my CEO quickly. A clarification, I can give you a PDF of the slides, Marco.
Okay.
So people can get a copy of the slides in PDF format, that's fine. I'll send it to you or Rod, and then you can distribute it or put it wherever people get access to it. But it won't be the slides, but it will be a PDF of the slides.
Yep, that works. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Right, do you need to restart the recording?
It's paused right now.
Yeah, if you want to restart it then, please.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
When he's talking, I listen.
So
Okay, go ahead.
I don't see. Is it recording?
It is right now. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. All right.
I know that.
So what's wrong with Wi-Fi then? Okay. So
Yeah, but it's not.
Wi-Fi is over 15 years old. Okay. It's vulnerable to de-authentication attacks. Let's imagine that you're doing a team with your manager and your manager's called Bob, right? And you are doing something, you're playing paintball in the forest and Bob is shouting instructions to you, okay? What's stopping me standing up, doing an impersonation of Bob and say, it's Bob here, everybody put your weapons down. And you're all like, okay, and you all put your weapons down, red team wins, okay? That's exactly what the problem is in Wi-Fi. I can say, I'm your access point, and I can say, hey, you, de-authenticate. And you're like, oh, okay. And there's nothing to stop that. Okay, well, surely you'll notice the MAC address, right? But I can spoof your MAC address. I can spoof a de-authentication to make it look like it's coming from your wireless router. Now, whenever I use the word access point, okay, if you don't work in Wi-Fi, you may call them wireless routers, okay? So at home, you have a wireless router. In the office, we have our wireless, whatever you call them. It's the same thing. A wireless router is a plastic box with an access point built in, that's all. So access point or wireless router, for this context, is the same thing. I can spoof to make it look like the message is coming from your wireless router or access point. Hey, quick. And if you just saw a strange head appear above me, that's like this dog I have sat over there on which my hat sits. So don't think that I'm haunted by like some kind of dog monster. If I put my head in the wrong place, I don't know if you saw it, I just saw it above me suddenly appear. It's a very intelligent dog, by the way. I practice all my webinars and talks on him. So he's wireless certified, N+, S+, all of them. All right, so I can also do attacks against your password. And the thing I can do here is I can do this attack from my house. I can come to your place of business, sit outside your house, capture your stuff. As long as I capture your four-way handshake, I can take that capture away with me and I can attack. I'm actually attacking your password, your passphrase. Okay? Once I do the attack and I know your pre-shared key, I own your network. Now, if it's your home Wi-Fi network, that can have problems. If it's the corporate IoT onboarding Wi-Fi network, you have huge problems. Okay? WPA2 will happily let you not use security. Coffee shops, guest networks. PSK can be an easy minimum of 8 characters. So that's an allowable passphrase. And of course, crack came along and broke WPA2. So crack was the key reinstallation attacks. Okay. And I must point out here that this was not so much of a problem with WPA2 itself, but it was the way that vendors implemented WPA2. It happens a little bit too often, I'm afraid. Vendors don't take as much care as they should, and all of them are guilty of this. Vendors did a poor implementation of WPA2, okay? And crack took advantage of that and made WPA2 very, very more easily attackable by making them reuse these. So a nonce, a number that's used once, it's supposed to be used once. So reusing a nonce is inherently a huge problem, right? Because it's not supposed to be allowed. But crack would break WPA2 by forcing nonce reuse. Okay, so this really was a death knell for WPA2. First of all, people didn't trust WPA2 so much anymore. And secondly, well, vendors immediately fixed these leaks, as it were, but the damage was done. So surely it's not that easy to break, right? It takes years to break, right? Nope. If you just happen to have an Ethereum miner that you don't use anymore, because it doesn't cover the cost of the electricity that it uses anymore, and you convert it over to a Windows-based Kraken tool, it's very, very interesting. So I'm going to show you a demonstration of Kraken. I created an SSID called PSK1, and I've got one called PSK2, and I do a demonstration of a dictionary attack. Dictionary attack is where you're going to attack it using a dictionary of words. Now, the words may be password 123. It's a dictionary of phrases is a better way of putting it. Now, the key point to understand, if the password, the passphrase, is not in the dictionary, it will never be successful. If you want to go through every character combination, that's a brute force attack. Okay, that's a lot more compute intensive. So what I do in the demo usually is I demonstrate doing the password attack from the dictionary using a word or a phrase that's 700 words in the 9 million word dictionary. And it takes about 2 minutes. And then I show you that I run the same attack on PSK2, where the word is 7 million words in the dictionary. And it takes like 12, 18 hours, okay? I run the dictionary attack on this device with the same dictionary, and it took to get the second key, it took 0.27 seconds. It literally went loading, it initializes the graphics cards, it downloads a portion of the search space to each of the graphics cards, and then it starts up and it goes, here's the passphrase. And I saw it, and it took 5 minutes to do the initialization. Chug, 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 chug. And I got up and went to get a coffee. When I came back, it had stopped. And I thought it had crashed. And it was like, no, the password's candy 123. 0.2, it took 0.27 seconds of processing, but it took 7 minutes to initialize. It took longer to initialize than it did to run the actual dictionary attack. Have you ever done a brute force attack with it? Yes, I loaded it up. The same, I used a password that wasn't in the dictionary. I think I used Cisco 123 or something. And I said, all right, believe it or not, Cisco 123 was in the dictionary at that time. I ran it, and it said, I'm going through, I actually told it to go through every combination. It said it was going to take a long time. I then told it 5 alphabetic, 3 numeric, and it said it was going to take 3 hours of brute force. And I then ran it on, I made it an alphabetic only, like Cisco sys, lowercase, and it said it was going to take an afternoon to do it. So that goes back to the longer is good. Longer and more complex is even better, okay? So when I made it Cisco 123, it took like a week, because I told it to go through uppercase, lowercase, and numeric, and it was going to take like a week or 2 weeks or something to go through the entire space of 8 characters. Now, the lesson there is don't have an 8-character passphrase, right? Have a long passphrase. But, right, okay, so you captured the data. You did it, Phil. You do this for a living. It's really hard. Normal folk can't do this, right? Nope, not true. I don't know if anyone remembers, but I did a talk, I think it was a while back, way before COVID, on the Punagotchi. The Punagotchi is based on the Tamagotchi, and it's got this cute little face. Here I got it wide open, mounted on a USB, so I can just plug it into a USB battery. There are prettier cases for this, but I like this one. And what the Punagotchi does is you keep it alive by feeding it 4-way handshakes. Okay, so what it does, if it sees a 4-way handshake go by, it captures it and logs it to a local storage area. So it captures 4-way handshake. So I can walk around anywhere I want with this little guy in a battery pack in my backpack, capturing 4-way handshakes. So it captures the four-way handshake PNK ID, stores them as a PCAP. Now, it will try and associate to SSIDs, and it will use AI to learn how to get better. Now, be careful if you do use one of these babies, okay? They've got nice mode and they've got naughty mode. In nice mode, they capture four-way handshakes. In naughty mode, they try and associate. And if they see communication go by, they will go and they will de-authenticate client. They'll send out a broadcast de-authentication attack, de-authenticating people in your vicinity. So you may not want to do that work at the DMV, police station, government buildings, military bases, airports, and so on and so forth, right? Now, there's a flag you can put in to tell your Punagachi to be kind. Don't be nice. Don't be mean. Okay? Don't be a meanie. If you do that, the Punagachi will not start attacking the networks, but it will still capture the networks. Now, I'm sure there's a whole separate conversation we need to have, that if you're near a military base or at the airport and you're capturing the four-way handshake, well, they broadcast it. I'm not entirely convinced the judge will see it the same way. So I personally would not have this turned on at anywhere, not even at like an IRS, tax, DMV, Social Security office. I just wouldn't do it. Don't mess around with things. Right? But you can just simply have this on you. No one's going to care. Okay. No one's going to know what you're doing unless you start de-authenticating. If you have de-authenticate turned on, wireless intrusion protection systems will light up like a Christmas tree. And if you've gone to the expense of having a WIPS, you've probably gone to the expense of having a WIPS location. So they'll be like, that guy in that area over there, someone in that area over there is doing de-authentication attacks. So here's where you go. Go and have a look at it. I did a talk, it was back in 2020.
Okay, let me go get everything out of my desk. Oh,
Guys, someone's talking, sorry.
Go ahead, I'll wait here with it.
What up?
I'll wait here with her.
1 minute.
There you go. So someone just started talking for a reason. I don't know why it didn't, just came through. Okay. I think it was May 2020, but there's the link to it. Just go to Pacific Hackers and look up Punagachi or Phil Morgan and you'll find it. All right. So this might be a good time to do a quick demo to see how easy is it to break a password. Marco, do you want to stop the recording for a minute, please?
Sure.
Marco. Maybe I preempted that too much. I don't see my screen sharing. Do you see my screen sharing?
It's black. It's a black
Oh, hang on. It might be me. It might be because yeah. I said share VMware and I didn't have VMware as the forefront. All right. So I have a network called PSK1, which is a little network I take with me when I do demonstrations. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack PSK1. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to show you AirmonNG will show me what devices I have available. I have none. Fantastic. I'm going to just simply unplug them back in, because that's a lot easier. This is a good time for me to unplug my. So this Linksys that I'm talking about is the Linksys WUSB 600N. W whiskey, U umbrella, S Sierra, V Bravo, 600 N November. And what you see is, I noticed, I'm going to connect it to Linux. And I'm going to slide in 2 other little devices as well. These are just 2.4 gig. Now they should come out a bit quicker. It does take a little while. We'll just sit here and be patient and wait. For anyone that's going to try and do this, error 110 is a good thing. That means it's starting to work it out. That probably means one of them is present, or very soon it will be. And this is not typical. I don't know why my Kali Linux in my VM on my Apple always takes a long time. I have Kali Linux installed on a Raspberry Pi 4 and it's instantaneous. There you go. So you can see now that it's loaded up the adapter and that you can see the driver that's used. This is a very common driver. And there's the actual model of the device that I always scoop up if I see them on eBay, because it gives me 5 gigahertz as well as 2.4. The other two devices I'm going to load up in a minute are 2.4 only. But notice they're using the exact same driver, which is lovely, right? So this is actually an RT2870, and this one is an RT5370. But this second one, this is 2.4 gigahertz only. And I have one more that's working its way in. It'll be here in a minute. And again, D-message, error 110 is a good thing. Wow, it means it's on its way. I'll give it a few more. Fast forward the video. There you go, there they are. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to attack the Wi-Fi network called PSK1. And this is just a quick demo. I've got more coming later that are a bit more in depth, but this is just a quick one. I'm saying use the dictionary file rocku.txt that's included with Kali Linux. And I just simply go, and it says, right, which adapter do you want me to use? It doesn't matter, but I'll stick with number 1. It turns monitor mode on, wireless LAN 0, starts scanning, then says, let me know when I found the network you want to attack. So I want to attack that guy in the middle, PSK1. So I do Control-C once, and it come up and says, right, who do you want to attack? And I want to attack PSK1 that's on channel 11 using WPA. Kali Linux doesn't differentiate between WPA and WPA2. It's the same attack, right? Because we're attacking the 4-way handshake, which is the same on WPA and WPA2. Oh, that's it. I've never seen that one before. One of my neighbors using Enterprise. Oh, interesting. Make a note of that. So I'm going to just simply type in the number representing PSK1, which is number 9. So I'm going to say, please attack network number 9, and off you go. Okay. Now, it may go straight in, or it may try and do a different attack. I'm going to stop these. These are not going to work. A pixie dust attack and a WPS attack are not going to work today. I got APs that are like 10 years old. They don't even work on them. We fixed these attacks a long time ago. So I'm going to just zip through these until I come to the attack that I want. I don't care about that one. You can't actually put a flag in at the start to go straight to WPA. This one is probably not going to work as well. And that leads us to the WPA handshake capture. Okay, so it's listening. It's noticed there's 2 clients, and it's going to do a deauthentication attack in 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's broadcasting a deauthentication attack. It didn't work. Now I can speed this up now. Oh, it just did it. It just did it. So now it's going through, trying to calculate what the key is. Did you notice that it deauthenticated everybody? Disconnected me, and off we go. And so now we sit and wait. When it gets to about 1.7% usually, it says the password is candy123. Now, just to let you know what it's doing, it's going through every single word. And by the way, some of the words on the right-hand side may be a little flavorful. So if you see some cuss words, I apologize. Still going. Oh, did it? There you go. The password is, I messed it up by moving the screen. I'm sorry, Dan. There you go. The password is candy123. Now, what it's doing is it's going through every single word, okay? And it jumps several thousand words at a time. So don't think it's showing you every single word. It jumps through the words and it's going through, and it says, let's, the word popcorn, it then mixes it 4,096 times with the SSID, PSK1, and then takes a look at the four-way handshake and uses those values to calculate the PTK. It then does the calculation on the MIC exchange of number 2. If it fails, it's the wrong passphrase. If it passes, yeah, I got it. So it's a very easy way to attack a wireless network. Now, huge problem. This attack only works. This attack only works if the passphrase is in the dictionary file. So, for example, if I did candy123 4, if that string is not in the dictionary file, it will sit there for several hours and come back and say, password not found. The alternative is a brute force attack, which is a different tool, different utility, okay? But a brute force attack will go through every possible combination of letters and uppercase letters, uppercase numbers, uppercase numbers, and special characters. Now, the longer the passphrase, the more secure and the more time it takes to try and guess it. The longer the passphrase and the more complex the password, the more difficult it is to guess the passphrase. All right, let me transition back over to my other screen. So as you can see, that was a very, very easy way to hack a Wi-Fi network. Now, I knew what the SSID was, and I had a pre-built dictionary file, okay? The problem is, if the passphrase is not in the dictionary file, it's not going to work. So one thing you can do is, if you're trying to use a password, check if that password is in your dictionary file, right? Don't upload it. Yeah, send me your passphrase to let me check if it's in a dictionary file. Yeah, don't do that, right? We all know that old scam. So the little device I had, it's called the Baby Kraken. It's a Windows-based platform of an actual tool called the Kraken, which last time I checked was using high-end NVIDIA cards. I built it as a proof of concept to have some fun with using 1650s, I think they might have been. The Kraken was operating on NVIDIA 3090s. Okay. Now the one 3090 has the same performance as my Baby Kraken does. Just to give you a heads up. One 3090 has the same performance as the 8 graphics cards on my Baby Kraken. So can you imagine having 8 3090s? Now that's probably I believe it's a $25,000 machine, but that is not outside of the realm of expenses of a professional attacker, okay? A professional threat actor, whether it be country-based, criminal-based, $25,000 for a Kraken that will basically, you've got 8 times the functionality than what I had, which means if I break it in 8 weeks, it'll break it in 1 week. It's kind of that simple, right? And 3090s, I believe, are still the most powerful graphics cards out there, but there are some other newer ones coming out now that provide even more power. I think the 3090 Ti is coming out, or 3080 Ti or something. And it's all a function of raw processing power, right? All right. So the Kraken, as I mentioned, what I just did, there's a more complex, or well, it's not a more complex, it's further down in the password dictionary file. The dictionary file entry, there was 7 million in my baby Kraken broke in 0.27 seconds, right? That is one hell of a short amount of time to do dictionary attacks. As I said, it took like 100 times longer to initialize the run than the actual run itself took. Is there hope? Are we stuck? Well, surely there must be a solution. This is 2022, right? We have self-driving cars. My buddy has a Tesla, and he says that he can get on the 580 and he can sit back and just watch the road go by. Our phones, our iPhones have more raw power than 1960 supercomputers. We're talking about sending people to Mars. We have robots. Let's not mention Cyberdyne systems. The only solution to WPA2 is use stronger, longer passwords. The end. We're done. That's it. Use longer, stronger passwords. Now, I forget the exact number because obviously this changes, but I believe the NSA are recommended 18-character passwords. That will probably change next week. Yes, I said 18, 1-8, not 8, right? And of course, use either words, multiple words, or mix in numbers and uppercase and lowercase as well. But the problem we have is the more complex you make the password, the more likely the user is to write it on a yellow sticky and put it underneath the keyboard. Okay. So the problem with strong passwords is they're more complex. Yeah, but users aren't going to remember trombone at umbrella 7928 QXP11. Okay. So longer passwords. My birthday is in July. And then use uppercase, maybe. Of course, I can't use that password ever again now, can I? So WPA3, magical unicorns and stuff. It's going to create world peace and solve all our problems. Well, maybe not, but it's a lot better. Things you need to know about WPA3. You need to understand not the algorithm, but the concept of Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, SAE, and OWE. Okay. Wi-Fi 6E is coming. Wi-Fi 6Es are coming. Okay. 6E is Wi-Fi in 6 gigahertz. It mandates the use of WPA3. So WPA3 is going to save us from the problems of WPA2. So what's the problem with that? Well, do your clients support it, right? Do your clients support WPA3? And if they don't, you got a problem. So I turned WPA3 on my Eero network at home, and my son said, hey, my iPad won't connect anymore. I'm like, oh, I'll have a look at it tonight. And then my daughter said, hey, my iPad doesn't connect anymore. If one user can't connect, it's probably them. Multiple users can't connect, it's probably you, right? And I went, oh, hold on. I turned off WPA3. Does it work now? Yes, it does. All right, do an update. When's the last time you did an update on your iPads? A year and a half ago, right? Do an update now, please. They updated the iPads. I turned on WPA3, and it turns out it was a software fix. The latest version or the newer versions of the iPad software supported WPA3. So WPA3 solves the problems with WPA2, super duper mega awesome. Yay. So what's this Diffie-Hellman thing? So Diffie-Hellman is a method to create a secure, unique key across a public transport, okay, by two entities. Alice and Bob want to talk to each other. They pick a common color of paint. They pick a secret color that they hold secret. They mix the common and the secret, and they send the mix across the public transportation system. Okay. Now you have to assume that the reverse engineering of the mixture is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. Okay. Now, but Phil, yellow and red makes orange. Yeah, but the exact color, the exact hue, the exact shade out of 4 billion colors is what we do, or billions of colors. That's the point to understand. When they mix the transmitted color with their secret color, they end up with this yucky browny green color that is common to both of them, that anybody intercepting the communications cannot calculate. Okay. So that's what the Diffie-Hellman, as explained on Wikipedia, with paint is. Now, I'm going to speed up because I do notice we are running out of time very rapidly. Diffie-Hellman is based on finite field discrete logarithmic methods, x to the power of y mod p. Okay, you don't need to know how to rebuild a car engine to drive a car. Just check the tires, put gas in, check the oil, right? You don't need to understand the math, just understand that this is a very, very complicated mathematical method that is very difficult to reverse engineer. Well, elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, all I'm going to say is it's very easy knowing an algorithm and a value to plot a graph. You can then choose that point, invert it, jump a known tangent, keep on doing this over and over again. It's easy to do this from a known value to get to an end point. Given an end point on a graph, it is very difficult to reverse engineer because you don't know how many times you jumped as well. You actually do know the plot of the graph, but you don't know how many times you did and what the tangent that you did to calculate the jump point to. So just understand that elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, please understand, is even more difficult to reverse engineer than Diffie-Hellman. SAE, no. So I Googled SAE, this is what I came up with, right? No, not oil. Simultaneous authentication of equals. Now, the short version, what do you know up till now? You know that the PMK is calculated from the pre-shed key. If we break the pre-shed key, if we guess the pre-shed key, we know the PMK. Everybody using the same pre-shed key is using the same PMK. All right? So what SAE does, it does a four-way exchange. Typically, the authentication is 2 frames. The association is 2 frames. With SAE, it does a four-way authentication, the result of which is a unique PMK for every user every time they connect. The pre-shed key is still used to authenticate you, but the PMK is calculated uniquely for every user every time they connect. So that has completely stopped me being able to hack your Wi-Fi network. Because it doesn't matter if I connect to your network, I can still do an attack trying to guess what your pre-shed key is, and that will allow me to connect to your network, but I can't decode anybody else's traffic anymore. Because they're all using their own PMK, and even if I capture the four-way handshake, there's no way I can reverse engineer the PTK. So with WPA3 SAE, everybody has unique PMKs every time they connect to the network. Okay. I'm zipping through this. WPA3 is also updated WPA2, which is allowing protected management frames, which means when you say, hey, I'm your access point, I want you to de-authenticate, you can say, you didn't use our secret key. I know it's not you, I'm ignoring you. So the whole concept of de-authentication attacks are now stopped. It also enforces a minimum 128-bit security and enhanced vendor security implementation validation as well. WPA3 is the future. It disallows TKIP and it mandates the use of PMF. So 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi, by the way, is mandating the operation of WPA3 with PMF. Transition mode is available. Transition mode allows you to use WPA3, but if the client says, I can't do WPA3, then you drop down to WPA2. Guess what all the hackers have to do? I don't use WPA3. Now your network drops down to WPA2 level security, and now I can do the four-way handshake capture attack, and I can guess your network's data. I can guess your pre-shared key or your passphrase, really, which can lead to me calculating your pre-shared key, which means I can look at all your data. Okay, so I have a personal opinion, you don't use transition mode. Well, isn't that more complex? No, I have one SSID for WPA2 and one SSID for WPA3. Don't use the same pre-shared key. And keep them separate, keep them firewalled. Okay. But that's one more SSID. Well, there are some clients that won't work with transition mode, which means you have to have transition mode and you have to have WPA2 mode. So what's the difference? One more SSID is a small price to pay for WPA3 security. So WPA3 is resistant to offline dictionary attacks. I can't capture data and take it away with me. I can't do password guessing attempts. Every user is protected with a unique pairwise master key. Users do not even see the difference. As I said, I turned WPA3 on my Eero, my iPhone and my iPad connected to the network without any problems because they were capable. The only problem I had, clients that couldn't support it, needed to be upgraded. So in WPA2 Personal, pre-shared key will just provide authentication. SAE will replace PSK for encryption, and SAE will negotiate the PNK, then run the four-way handshake with the PNK negotiated from SAE, not the PNK calculated from the pre-shared key. It's resistant to dictionary attacks and brute force attacks, because you're no longer attacking the PNK calculated by the pre-shared key. So as of July 2020, WPA2 Personal is required for Wi-Fi 6, WPA3 and Enterprise and OWE are optional. I think that may change very soon. Now, when you go to a coffee shop, you do not have any authentication or encryption. You don't run the four-way handshake. OWE is a new process that was brought out, and it's not a part of WPA3. It's a separate process, separate certification with the Wi-Fi Alliance. What happens is you do a standard authentication, then you do a special OWE using our friend elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman. So SAE and OWE use elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman. And that is used to calculate the PMK, which is then used to feed into the four-way handshake to give you a pairwise transient key. But I thought you said you didn't have any encryption or authentication turned on. Yeah, right. You got nothing turned on. It's an open network, but it still makes you use encryption. Joy, 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 joy. So you're at the airport, you're at a coffee shop, you connect to the open network, and you still get all your data encrypted, right? Super duper lovely. WPA2 Enterprise just makes it a little bit stronger, well, a lot stronger, and it doesn't allow you to turn off PMF. But other than that, WP3A3 Enterprise is just a stronger version of WPA2, the end. Clients won't even notice if they support it. They will notice if they don't support it, right? They will not be allowed to connect. I'm going to zip through this, blah, blah, blah. My Eero, I'm running WPA3 at home. Yes, I am. Why? Because I can. Okay. There comes a time, guys and gals, when I'm afraid to tell you this, where your boss will say to you, yeah, but we can't upgrade to WPA3 because of all the barcode scanners we have in the warehouse. There comes a time when you've got to take your boss aside and say, boss, we have to buy some new APs and wireless routers. We have to buy some new barcode scanners. I had a customer that said to me they didn't want to upgrade from WEP. I don't want to upgrade from WEP, Phil, because our barcode scanners don't support it. I sat down and showed them that I could, I said, do I change your WEP key? add an SSID, create a web key, whatever you like. All right. And I turned on my hacking device and I cracked their web key 20 minutes later. Guess what they did next, gang? They upgraded the barcode scanners in their warehouse, right? The weakest link is the strength of the chain. There was a little bit of information came out that WPA3 is dead. The Wi-Fi Alliance did WPA3 and they kind of hid it, or they didn't broadcast what they were doing. So nobody tested it. The same guy that did crack came out and said WPA3 is broken. I'll give you the short version of this. All the vendors went, yeah, we fixed them. Don't worry about it. So WPA3 is not dead. It is not broken. It is alive and well. Thank you very much. As long as you use a reputable vendor and, of course, latest version of client firmware and drivers. So all the problems that came out with WPA3 were fixed by the vendors almost immediately. All right. Can you pause the recording, please, Marco? So a quick bit of information for everybody. If you want to learn more about Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 6E, I've started a blog. It's still in development. There's a good bit of information on there. It talks about a lot about Wi-Fi 6E. Okay. There's only a few blog posts on there now, but it talks about how I started working with Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 6E. Wi-Fi 6E, remember, is 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi. You got to buy new APs, new wireless routers, and you got to buy new clients. Also, you can go to NC Expert's website, and you will get information. If you go to student resources, you've got study resources, which is a ton of information about Wi-Fi stuff, all free. And if you go to blogs, there's lots of blogs on there about stuff. One of my favorite blogs is whenever you go to a coffee shop. That didn't work. There you go. When you go to a coffee shop, only use protocols with an S, right? Don't use protocols that don't have an S. Obviously, the best thing you want to do is you want to use VPN. VPNs, look, it's got an S. Just having a bit of fun, guys and girls. So the now, of course, is for those people who don't use protocols with an S in them, okay? WPA3 with OWE will encrypt their traffic as well. All right, I got some top tips here. I'm going to actually whiz through these. The PDF's going to be available. I'm going to mention, I am very aware of the time, but I thought it was 2 o'clock. I told you I can get carried away. So very quickly, if it needs to be open, filter it, firewall it, add a hotspot. Now use WPA3 OWE on it. OWE is perfect because if clients don't support OWE, they will remain unencrypted. But for those clients who do, they will be able to use encryption. Use WPA2. Don't use WPA WEP. If you can, move to WPA3 as soon as possible. Do not use transition mode. Have a separate network for WPA2. Have a separate network for WPA3. Do not use the same password on WPA3 and WPA2. Why? Because I'm going to attack, let's just say I'm Mr. Nasty Hacker. I'm going to see your WPA2 and I'm going to see your WPA3. I'm going to dictionary attack your WPA2. I'll brute force your WPA2. The first thing I'm going to try is try that password on WPA3. Oh, it's the same. Bonus. Okay, so don't do that. Use a safe password, greater than 15 characters. Okay. I believe NSA are now doing 18 or longer, maybe 20 or 22 characters. Okay. Watch out for social engineering. Okay. At my house, there's Phil's network with a Cisco firewall, and there's the family network with a Bitdefender box. It's easy enough. I also use Cisco Umbrella. I don't know if you know what Cisco Umbrella is, but it's a DNS filter. So if I download an email offering to make me a millionaire from a prince from somewhere, if I click on it because I'm not paying attention, when it redirects to the CNC server, Umbrella goes, no, I'm not letting you resolve that DNS entry. No. So I personally use DNS security. I use Cisco Umbrella because I do a lot of work with Cisco. I'm sure that there are lots of others out there. There are other free or cheaper ones. But you know, are your kids giving out your passphrase to their friends when they come and visit? Right? Yeah, I have a guest network at home. All my corporate data is on my network, not the family network. I'm being sarcastic, right? Don't change your WPA2 password. It makes it hard for us to break. This is sarcasm. I'm British. If you need to do a lesson, Google British sarcasm. It's very, very, it's kind of akin to what you guys call roasts over here, right? British sense of humor. We have a wicked sense of humor. And sarcasm is we say something we don't mean. Change your passwords frequently, gang. If someone leaves the company, right? Now, there's another thing coming out now from a lot of vendors. It's called MPSK, multi-pre-shared keys. And what happens is every user has their own pre-shared key. Now, this is great because if a student in a dorm wants to use multiple devices, you turn on multi-pre-shared keys and allow multiple devices to connect. Networks like MIST will allow any devices that are connected with the same pre-shared key to intercommunicate. So Johnny in the dorm, his Xbox, his printer, and his laptop and his tablet connect with the same pre-shared key. He's now got a mini little network that only he can use. It also means that if a user leaves, you just change their pre-shared key. It also means that you can have one pre-shared key for the IoT onboarding team. Another technique here is only let the IT have the pre-shared key. So only IT has the pre-shared key, nobody else knows it, okay? Now, that of course becomes very complex. If a user leaves the company, it doesn't matter. No one knows the pre-shared key. But it means every time you want to onboard a new device, you've got to take it down to the IT department. Only IT has the pre-shared key, and you use multiple per user pre-shared keys, and a great combination, okay? Where you can, for the IoT, only IT has the IoT pre-shared key, and they must onboard IT or OT. Then the users are allowed to have their own pre-shared key, and they can give it to whoever they want to. Their network that becomes weaker. Okay. Have a unique password, never reuse it, especially on WPA2 and WPA3. Every now and again, scan your network, Nmap, things, see who's on there. Install the whips. Aren't they expensive? Raspberry Pi 4. Run Kismet. That will let you know if someone's attacking your network. It's not an awesome whips, but it's free, right? Or cheap. Forget WPS pins. We don't care about them. These were broken years ago, and most vendors will fix this now. WPS is a way where you press a button or a software key on your client and on your AP. It has a Diffie-Hellman to create a passphrase key. But I would disable WPS. You can't do WPS on most enterprise access points. I would disable it, or at least change it. Be careful, some older home wireless routers say they've disabled it, but they haven't. Watch out for random hotspots appearing in your vicinity. If I wanted to hack into a building, I would use like ATT Starbucks or H Honors as the SSID I want to use. I do a great introduction to hacking on a hacking class that I teach. And I ask people, how many of you are connected to Marriott Rewards, H Honors, AT&T Starbucks, United Wi-Fi? And you know, some people, but I don't actually allow them to connect. I allow them to authenticate, but I don't let them associate. I don't give them an IP address because that would be naughty. I said, guys, we're in a Holiday Inn. Why would there be Hilton Honors and Marriott Rewards? Are you on an airplane? No, then how have you got United Wi-Fi? And I point out to them that because their client networks have connected to these networks before, they will automatically connect to them and they're open, right? It's one of the biggest security issues out there. On an iPhone or an iPad, you cannot delete an SSID if you are no longer in the presence of that SSID. So every now and again, you've got to go and clear out all the stored SSIDs on your devices. Oh, Phil, that is so inconvenient. Inconvenience. Say it all with me. Inconvenience is a hacker's best friend. The harder they make it for you, the more likely you are you're not going to do it. I don't mean the hackers. The harder the vendors make it for you, the more likely you're not going to do it, which means the hackers can leverage it. And by the way, when I say hackers, I mean crackers, right? The bad, the nasty hat hackers, not the nice people who attend Phil's Wi-Fi talk. Guys, gals, use a firewall, update. Quick story for you. I get a DHCP pool from Comcast. I get an error message saying my pool has run out. I'm like, what? My phone, my wife's phone, my laptop, and I count, and I got nine devices. And I'm like, what? So I go and look at my DHCP pool. My Netgear switch has an IP address. I'm like, it's an unmanaged Netgear switch. I bought it because it's unmanaged. Well, they only ask for an IP address so they can do a firmware update whenever they need to, right? My unmanaged Netgear switch asked for an IP address. And then I found all these other devices that were grabbing IP addresses. So keep an eye on the number of IP addresses on your DHCP pool. Like if there's 126 devices or IP addresses given out, why is that there? Again, change the default username and password. Most admin username and password are listed on the internet. If you don't believe this, just Google default login for Netgear, default login for ASUS, default login for D-Link. Change it or don't. No, ignore my sarcasm. Change it now. Keep up to date on your firmware. When's the last time you updated the firmware on your Netgear access point? Go and check, see if there's a new one available. If something changes, find out why. Things just don't change for the hell of it. Always use protocols with an S. Whenever I'm away from the office, I always use a VPN. If in doubt, use a VPN out. If you download the default Kali image, it's a good idea to change your passwords, change the default password, and also change your SSH keys, right? Because if I download the Kali Linux default image and I don't change my SSH keys, if you download it, they kind of the same SSH keys. So technically, you can SSH into my Kali Linux easily with a little bit of knowledge. Test it, have a policy. If you don't have one, go to these places to get one. Pen test it, get educated. Anybody get this one? Ectogammat, anybody a big fan? From the Fifth Element. It's literally, there's a point where she's unconscious and he kisses her, and she points a gun to his head and says, Ectogammat. And on the way out, he asked the priest, what does ectogammat mean? It's never without my permission. So if you do pen testing, you all know that you never do it without the target's permission. In writing, duplicated, right? Of course. But get educated on these things. If anyone's interested, we do a course on CWSP, which is Wireless Security Professional from CWNP. That is a very in-depth security class. 4 days. All right. So I've got some demos and stuff to do. Stop there if we have any Q&A, and then we can stop the recording. Actually, if you want to do the recording, Marco, I can carry on, do some demos, people can watch it, but let's do some Q&A first, please. Can you stop the recording, please?
Okay, sure.
So I'm answering the question that was asked. I think I'm answering the question that was asked. A big problem with Wi-Fi that people don't understand is you can only connect to Wi-Fi if you know what's needed to connect to Wi-Fi. So everything that you need to do is advertised by the access point in the beacons. So what security are you using? WPA2 Enterprise or Personal is advertised in information element number 48 in your beacons. So if I want to attack you, all I've got to do is look at your beacon and know exactly what security you're using. What if I hide my SSID? You can't, it's physically impossible to do that. There's a button that I can click on my access point. No, it says hide SSID. All it does is stop putting the name of the SSID in the beacons. There's a little utility that I demo in my Wi-Fi hacking boot camps, where I turn on aerodump ng and I just leave it there. And aerodump ng says, oh, it's hidden SSID. And somebody comes along and says, hello, can I connect to secret network? And the access point goes, yes, you can connect to secret network. Welcome to secret network. And aerodump goes, oh, that hidden SSID, it was secret network. Because all that hidden networks do is hide the SSID name from the beacons. It does not hide them from the probes and the associations, which a lot of people don't understand. And of course, any hackers wandering by, when they see you have a hidden network, they're going to go, what's he got to hide there? Which makes them more interested. So hidden networks are literally a waste of time. It does not stop. It'll stop script kiddies messing with you, but it won't stop a professional hacker from it'll actually intrigue them as to why you've hidden it. So hiding the network and the fact that the beacons advertise everything that you're doing kind of gives you an easy access into how you go about attacking the network. Could you stop the recording there, please, Marco?
Sure. Go for it.
Oh, I'm sharing my screen. Okay, go. Right. There you go. Right. So this will answer a couple of questions at the same time. First of all, we have Kismet, right? Kismet is it's a hacking tool, but it also has basic WIPS functionality built in. So if you just wanted to know if something nasty is going on, you can find out from Kismet. Now, first things first.
Phil, quick question. Are you sharing your Kali or are you sharing your browser?
Hold on, I'm sharing the wrong screen. That's why. No. So I'm sharing my other screen. Let me rectify that. One of the benefits of having an Apple is that you have all these virtual screens you can use. One of the problems of having an Apple is you get lost with all these damn screens you can use.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
Yes. I'm fumbling, guys, because first of all, I've lost where I can share my screen. And now that I found that, I've lost where my Kali Linux has gone. Hold on a second. Let me try. There you go. Sorry for this, guys, but my Kali screen is vanished. What the hell? Oh, it's behind my presentation screen. That's why. Ah, technology, don't you just love it? There you go. Right, now you should see my screen. Let me do that again then. So all I'm doing is I'm running Kismet. Just you have to install it. It's actually installed in the latest version, pre-installed of the Raspberry Pi. So I got a Raspberry Pi 4 and I run Kismet. Now, Kismet is now running. Now a little bit of blah-de-blah. I've got to connect to all I got to connect to, I believe, should be it's 3501, if I remember correctly. Might be 3502. No. Oh, it is 2501. It's actually the one that is displayed there. I thought it was different, but I was wrong. All right, so there's Kali Linux. Okay, now all I've got to do now is I've got to tell my activate the data sources. Right, that's interesting. Okay, escape fixes everything. I've got to tell it to use, I'm going to tell it to use wireless LAN 2. If I enable the source, it should now start. There you go, seeing data on, and now you can see I am seeing SSIDs and I am seeing clients. Now, first things first. Yeah. Don't care about that. All right, there you go. So Kismet is happily doing its thing in the background, right? Now, next thing, I can carry on doing stuff with my Kali Linux. And I'm going to do this slightly differently. I could rerun the Wi-Fi, but I'm going to do this differently. I am going to, let me check to see what's going on my wireless interfaces. So Wi-Fi 0 is already in monitor mode. That's good. Okay. So I am now going to do this. I am going to go do aerodump ng. So run aerodump ng, and I'm going to use wireless LAN 0 mod. There we go. Show me everything I want to know. What I'm going to do is I am going to attack one of my networks. So I don't want to attack my neighbors because that's kind of illegal. And I'm really, really illegal, right? So I'm going to attack, see, look, there's a hidden network, by the way. There's PSK1 there. Look. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to control C this, and I'm going to de-authenticate PSK1, right? So I'm going to just copy this. And I am now going to do a command I got earlier. Yeah, so air replay ng -00 is a de-authentication attack. I'm going to do this on wireless LAN 0, and I'm going to feed this in. Now, it probably will give an error the first time I run it, because this is on channel 11, right? So when I run it, it'll probably not work. Yeah, because this particular card is on channel 13. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to do that, and I'm going to tell it to be on channel 11. It should put it on channel 11. I think it's mad at me because it might be lowercase c. There you go. I've now put the card on channel 11. So now when I do the air replay, -0 is de-authenticate, 0 is infinite, use the BSSID MAC address of the AP, that is the one I captured from PSK1. Okay. And what it's going to do now is literally de-authenticate the living hell out of that network. As you can see, it's sending multiple frames. I'm leaving this run, I'm leaving it do its thing because I have an ulterior purpose here. So I'm not being subtle. There is a more subtle version of that command that says de-authenticate this client MAC address on this AP. but I'm letting this go rampant. And the reason I'm letting it go rampant, because over here under Kismet, there isn't a new alert that has arrived. I love it when a plan comes together. And that new alert says, there's an awful lot of broadcast de-authentications going on in your neighborhood, Phil. Kismet has picked up someone trying to de-authenticate my client. Now, it says, here's the MAC address that is being used to broadcast. So all you got to do is take a look at it. Hey, that's the MAC address of my AP. Why is someone de-authenticating me? No good can come of someone broadcast de-authenticating you. And you can click here, look, and you can see them. So it thinks it's doing this because the AP, either the AP is shutting down when it's sending a de-authentication, or there's a potential denial of service. Now, you can run this on a Raspberry Pi 4 for like $60 with a free copy of Kali Linux installed. That's why I like Kismet, because Kismet tells you what's going on in your neighborhood. Now, there's a lot more to Kismet than that, but as you can see, look, it shows you every time it sees one. Now, if I was to do this, and like if I was to just send out one burst, okay, it's quite possible that Kismet, if it's looking at channel 1, is not going to see this on channel 11. Okay, and I can also do, I can say de-authenticate this. There's one more thing. Let me show you one more thing. If I look at this, let me very quickly connect with my iPhone. Now notice when it did that, when I connected with my iPhone, right? This arrow dump said, oh, by the way, I found this client trying to connect. First of all, this client is trying to get PSK 3, whereas this client was looking for PSK 1. Now, by the way, it's continuously being disconnected because I've stopped the de-authentication all the time. So now I can do this. And I can do -a, oh, I've got to remember the syntax. I think it's -c, I think. Yes, yeah, there you go. So I can now redo that. I can do an infinite de-authentication, but only of this client. Oh, sorry. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's right. It's only de-authenticating the one client. Now that should get Kismet to come up with a different warning. It's got to be on the channel when it sees them, right? It should get that eventually, but of course it's a little bit more subtle now because I'm actually de-authenticating. You see, it picked up my de-authentication of all clients, but it's a lot more difficult to pick up the de-authentication of one client. So I'm doing a directed de-authentication to this one client. Sorry, on this SSID to the one client. I think I typed the syntax correctly. Bear with me. -a. I'm pretty sure it's -C. I would have done it sometime. No, apologies, that's the channel. No, it is -C. Yeah, that's it. It is -C. I'm good. It's fine. Capital C is the channel. There you go. As again, you see, I type these commands frequently, but not frequently enough to remember. There you go. And so we can de-authenticate the client. There you go. Yeah, that is the client MAC address. Okay, yeah. But again, it usually picks this one up as well. But today it doesn't want to do it, of course, because we've been recorded. It picked up the broadcast de-authentications immediately. And as you can imagine, if I was just to go in and say, you know, just type in like do 3 bursts. Send 3 bursts. That's going to be less likely to be able to be picked up by your Kismet or even a fully blown, because no wireless intrusion protection system captures all channels. So they're all looking out. You know, if you're not looking out the window when the vehicle goes past, you miss the vehicle, right? There you go. Yeah. Now you can see that now that he was connected, you can see that in this column, I'm getting some hits. All right. So that was a demo of Kismet. That was a demo of Wi-Fi. I did a demo of AeroDump. AeroDump NG helps you find networks. AeroDump NG helps you do hidden networks. Kismet will help you find networks and SSIDs and clients, and also show you of any broadcast attacks going on. Showed you a DRth attack. Jamming, be very careful with jamming. Here, AirPlay-ng, I can de-authenticate. That's a form of jamming. We also have hardware jammers. Give it to our marketing team, and they decided to add some jam. You get it? Jams, yeah. Hardware jammers, there may be legal issues. If you jam your neighbor's network, they can sue you for it, okay? It's illegal to jam a legitimate network. Now, obviously, they've got to catch you first, but this happened to Marriott Networks over in, oh, I forget which state it was. But they were jamming people's MiFis. And they went to court. The judge says $50,000 fine. They appealed, and the judge said, well, let me just clarify now. You blocked them using their MiFi. Yes. And you did it for security reasons. Yes. But if they didn't use their Wi-Fi, they had to pay to use your Wi-Fi? Yes. Yeah, I think you're taking advantage and up the fine to $550,000. The judge said, look, you said you were doing it for security reasons, but you were blocking them using their own Wi-Fi and then telling them they have to pay to use yours. I'm not allowing it. $500 and something thousand fine. And Google it. It's a true story. What they were doing, they were blocking people using like Verizon and AT&T MiFi networks. They said they were doing it for security reasons. The second judge disagreed with them and charged them $500,000. I think that's us done, gang. Oh, you can also create your own word lists. So here's an example proof of concept from Michael, where he's got a Python script where you type in what's the person's name, what's their date of birth, you know, their dog's and the pet's name. You type in loads of information about them, and then he does use a Python script to randomly create common last name, month, year of birth, and all so on. But it's really not usable, but it says it's a proof of concept to show you if you gather enough intel on someone, you can probably create your own dictionary of potential words. As you guys and gals all know how surprising it is, that Facebook hack down in Los Angeles, right, where a cracker went through people's garbage and said, hacked into hundreds of Hollywood stars and starlets. And he said, you'll be amazed how many people their password is their maiden name or their mother's maiden name and their dog's name with their date of birth. Okay. And yeah, this is a bit more of an individual attack. This is what Wi-Fi is doing for you. Okay, it's capturing the four-way handshake, and it's de-authenticating the clients in the four-way handshake. And then once it's got a four-way handshake, it's running the aircrack tool or its own tool using a known word list to look for matches of the passphrase. Very quickly, Cowparty is another tool. Here's me sat outside your office running Cowparty. Okay, and Cowparty took 3,000 seconds to go through the passphrase list. Okay, at 163 passphrases a second. It's got to create the PMK, test it, move on. Here's me taking a dictionary file, passing it through, and here's the command I used in the bottom to show you what the command was. Here's me using the Gen PMK tool of Cowparty to pre-compute. In my lounge, I pre-computed it, every possible combination of what the PMK could be for every word. And it did it in 50,000 seconds. I went and had my dinner while it did this. The next day, when I'm stood outside your premises, I know I'm attacking your SSID. I'm attacking it based on the dictionary file. It took me 5 seconds to go through all. Actually, this has only got 500 passphrases. This is a smaller version. I'm sorry, it went through 9 million passphrases, and I added Cisco 1 to 3 at that point. Here it went through all possible combinations in 5 seconds because I pre-computed the PMKs. Now, the problem with that is if the passphrase is not in the dictionary, it still doesn't work, right? And I think I am going to stop there. Make sure your Wi-Fi networks are secure. WPA2's time is waning. WPA3 is the future. Future looks bright. Future will bring change. Be a little paranoid, right? Work together with your users, your vendors, your client suppliers. WPA3 is the best thing you can do at the moment. Move to WPA3 with your devices and your clients. While you transition over, have 2 separate SSIDs, one for WPA2, one for WPA3. Do not use transition mode. Do not use the same password on each. There's me. And again, can you stop the recording there, please, Marco?